Welcome back to Purple Color Life. This should tell you all you need to know. It is very bright and sunny outside, but as you can see, Olive still has her coat on because it's still pretty chilly out. So there's a couple things I need to do since we're approaching springtime here. Even though on my drive back from the Pittsburgh airport last week I was driving through snow and sleet, it is almost time that we can no longer run the studded tires on the Ford Ranger. All the other vehicles I've gone ahead and put the summer tires and wheels back on, but the Ranger was my last holdout because it is a two-wheel drive truck and you never know here in Northwest Pennsylvania when you'll get that last snow. But now we're reaching that April 15th deadline as not only tax deadline, but also studded tire deadline here in Pennsylvania. I've got my American Racing rims to put back on the truck, so we'll do that today. That is project number 1, but there's another big thing we need to do. We'll walk over to the building and show you that. So the grass is starting to green up already, and I've seen some of my neighbors already mowing the grass. I haven't mowed the first time yet, but it is almost time. Which means it's time to get the Toro TIMECUTTER ready. So in today's video, we're gonna do our spring maintenance of the Toro TIMECUTTER and get those winter tires off the Ranger. 2 springtime tasks that I always look forward to. Previously, I did a video detailed step-by-step on how to change the oil in the Toro TIMECUTTER. I'll leave a link to that video up above and down in the description. But since I'm doing 2 things kind of at the same time today, my plan is to start this oil draining because it does take a little bit of time. We'll start that, then we'll go work on the winter tires taking off in the Ranger, then we'll come back out and fill this up with oil. But if you're looking for that step-by-step oil change procedure for the Toro TIMECUTTER, use the link that's down in the description. I'll also put a link down below to the oil filter that I use when I'm changing the oil on the Toro TIMECUTTER. That might be helpful to you. I found this filter on Amazon. It's a great filter to use here on the machine, at least in the experiences I've had with it. This is always the trickiest part, getting this top thing off of the end here without breaking it. Takes some patience. What happens is it gets to be kind of a vacuum. I'm going to use some pliers. There we go. All right, we'll let that drain out. It took longer than I thought to get the hose off of the end there. Lug nut size on the Ford Ranger is 3/4 inch. Studded tires, these are the Cooper Evolution. These are directional winter tires. You can see all the siping, the metal studs. These are holding up really good. We've got 2 seasons on these. We probably have 2 seasons left, I would say. We're worn down some, but not even to the halfway point. This tire had previously been on the left front, so I'm going to put it on the right rear. It's also a good time to check and see what our brake pad looks like. I'd say we're about half. Rotor looks okay. I made this mistake before. You have to put the cap through first. There we go. I use different lug nuts on the American Racing wheels, the chrome lug nuts. So these are the ones that come on the Ford wheels. So while we were doing the first wheel of the Ranger, this oil all drained. So we'll go ahead and put that hose back up on the end, take the filter off and replace the oil. But you know, a coworker recently told me that the Harvard Business Journal said that it's impossible to multitask. I beg to differ. I've been doing the truck while this was draining oil, 2 tasks at the same time. This is gonna drip. I've never been able to do this without it dripping. So I keep this rag underneath it. Here's my new filter. You can see that there is like a waxy coating on that gasket, but it still says apply a thin film of oil to the surface of the gasket, tighten filter 1 turn after gasket contact base, start engine and check for oil leakage. So I'm using 5W30 motor oil. Do a little bit of oil coating here on the gasket. I also like to put a little bit of oil right on the threads. The nice thing about making videos here at Purple Color Life is I always know when I change the oil. So we're currently at 110 hours on the time cutter, and the date is April 7th, 2024. So we made contact. We're gonna go 1 turn and we should be good. According to the instructions, our Toro Time Cutter has the V-twin 24.5 horsepower commercial engine on it by Toro, and that should take 2.5 quarts to fill the crankcase and the filter. I'm using 10W30 Mobil 1. This is the same oil that I've used in the Gravely in the past. You don't want to overfill the crankcase on a mower. We're going to just fill this nice and slow. Now I know there's exactly 2 quarts left in here, and then I'll be using a half of a 1 quart bottle. I always watch for good deals. You can see this Mobil 1 was on sale for $3 at Walmart. Had been $7.88 a quart, down to $3. So when you can find good deals like that, that's exactly what you're looking for to put in your lawn mowers or even in your vehicles. So we want to do half a quart. Okay, let's go ahead and start it up, let that pump through, and then we'll check it again after it cools down. In case you saw some smoke while it was running and thought maybe I overfilled the oil, that can be a sign that you have overfilled that crankcase. But you can see down here I spilled some of the oil out of the tube when I was draining on the muffler. That's what's smoking. So while the oil drains back down to the crankcase in the Toro, we'll come back to do another wheel on the Ford Ranger. There we go, Harvard Business Review. Multitasking, it is possible. You learned it here on Purple Color Life. So just like we did before, putting the one from the left front on the right rear, we're putting the one from the right front onto the left rear. This time we will remember to put our cap in through the back first. Okay, the one that was on the right rear when we took it off, putting on the left front. This tire might have the most wear of any of them because this is the drive wheel tire when it's on the rear, and it had previously been on the front, so it's got the most edge wear along the edge and seemingly the most flat across wear. Still at least another summer in this though, maybe 2. I put quite a few miles on the truck. As you know, I drive it about 165 miles daily for my commute to work. These American racing wheels are a little bit more difficult to see where the lug nuts are when you're trying to put them back in place. You don't want to make them too tight or too loose. Too tight and you have a flat tire somewhere, you'll have a heck of a time getting these lug nuts off without your impact going along the side of the road. Too loose, and especially on these magnesium or aluminum rims that expand and contract with the temperature, they could end up being a dangerous situation. You always want to drive, I always say about 50 miles, then check your lug nuts again. Back to our multitasking. We've let this drain down. Let's see where we're at. We are just about perfect. We'll wipe it, put it back in. We are right here. So we're in the acceptable range. We're gonna run this a little bit. Mowing maybe the first time in the next week or so, depending on the weather. And then after we've run it for the first mowing, we'll check that oil again. We may need to add a little bit since we were right in the middle of that acceptable range. And we only ran it for a little bit through the filter there. But there you go. It's very simple oil change process on the Toro TimeCutter. Another thing I like to do for spring maintenance is check the air filter. Mine's looking pretty good. I replaced this last year, and I'll probably blow it out before we use it. Easy access for that. Spark plugs, I'm not even going to check this year. I did replace them last year even though they didn't need it. And we want to run the rest of the leftover gas out of this tank before we add more, so that we get the freshest gas in there for this season. I am 3/4 of the way through my summer wheel and tire changeover. I need to do some washing up of these American racing wheels, but I wanted to point out to you, in the wintertime, with the winter tires on the stock Ford Ranger wheels, I run a 235/75-15. A little bit bigger, heavier tire for the wintertime. In the summertime, I put the original size tire on. These are Firestone Destination LE2s in a 225/70 R15. So a little bit narrower, a little bit shorter on my American racing rims. I do notice I use a little bit more gas in the wintertime because these tires are heavier and bigger and metal studs than I do in the summertime. In the summertime, it feels like you got a lot more power because all of a sudden you've got 4 tires that are the proper size with an aluminum rim, a little bit lighter weight, a little bit easier to spin those rear tires. So I do notice in the summertime it feels a little bit more peppy to drive just because I've changed back to the original tire size. So I do think we've proved the Harvard Business Review wrong. Sorry for all of you who are currently in that master's class or doctorate class at Harvard where they've told you it's impossible to multitask. I multitask all the time. Just ask Jennifer when I'm watching television and thinking about something else in my head, or when I'm at work and I'm working on something but I'm thinking about something else. Or examples like this where because of time delays in draining oil, it gives you another chance to work on something else instead of just standing around. Prime example of multitasking. So both the Ranger and the Toro TimeCutter are ready for the summertime now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Leave those comments down below, things you look forward to doing in the spring to get you ready for summer. Mower maintenance is always one of mine, and then getting the trucks and vehicles all ready with their summer tires. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again the next time. I'm gonna take a nice soapy sponge and clean those rims up so they shine. When I drive to work tomorrow, people are gonna be like, ooh, that's a sharp looking truck. Well, the rest of the truck still needs a bath, but at least the wheels look summertime ready, good and shiny. One other thing I wanted to show you, while Coach was here working on our electrical, he was able to get this spigot end off, and let me show you what we found inside. This is the rod, there's the threaded end that was in the handle. Here's the rusted end that rusted down to a point. So what I don't know is if we would look down inside here with a really bright flashlight, if we would see the guts. So I need to take a look at that and see if we can get a new handle on here so that we can wash stuff out here in the garage.